Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Government scientists have once again sharply increased their estimate of the oil gushing out of BP's blown-out well in the Gulf of Mexico. According to the Flow Rate Technical Group, some 2.5 million gallons of crude could be spewing into the sea per day. It's the fourth time the government's increased its estimate of the spill size since the disaster began. The announcement came as President Obama discussed the crisis in his Oval Office address. Obama accused BP of recklessness and vowed to make the company pay for the massive damage it's caused.
The millions of gallons of oil that have spilled into the Gulf of Mexico are more like an epidemic, one that we will be fighting for months and even years. But make no mistake, we will fight this spill with everything we've got for as long as it takes. We will make BP pay for the damage their company has caused. And we will do whatever is necessary to help the Gulf Coast and its people recover from this tragedy.
Obama promised a battle plan to address the crisis, but offered few details on what the plan entails. He did announce the appointment of former Mississippi Governor Ray Mabus to develop a long-term Gulf Coast restoration plan, and he said he'll tell BP to pay for an independent fund to compensate Gulf Coast residents.
Tomorrow, I will meet with the chairman of BP and inform him that he is to set aside whatever resources are required to compensate the workers and business owners who have been harmed as a result of his company's recklessness. And this fund will not be controlled by BP. In order to ensure that all legitimate claims are paid out in a fair and timely manner, the account must and will be administered by an independent third party.
The president, meanwhile, has appointed a new head for the Minerals Management Service, the government agency responsible for overseeing offshore oil drilling. Michael Bromwich has no experience with oil and gas practices, but has worked extensively as a government watchdog and investigator. Obama scheduled to meet with top BP executives today at the White House. Ahead of the meeting, BP America President Lamar McKay testified before the House Energy and Commerce Committee, along with the CEOs of ExxonMobil, Chevron, ConocoPhillips, and Shell. Democratic Congressmember Ed Markey of Massachusetts prodded McKay to apologize for BP's faulty reporting of the spill size.
Please, one final chance, apologize for getting that number wrong.
We are sorry for everything the Gulf Coast is going through. We are sorry for that and the spill.
In one of many other heated moments, Republican Congressmember Cliff Stearns of Florida told McKay he should resign.
You know what, Mr. McKay, when the buck stops here means, you know, that you take full responsibility. Now, Mr. Markey had asked you for apology. I really think in light of the performance of you as a CEO and what has occurred, I really think you should be resigning as chairman of BP America. I mean, it's really outrageous that you sit here and tell us that you're going to punt to the unified command when we've had 11 people killed, we've had a huge environmental damage, and you're still sitting here as a CEO of BP?
In other testimony, Exxon CEO Rex Tillerson acknowledged major oil companies are unprepared to deal with environmental disasters at their drilling sites. Tillerson was questioned by Democratic Congressmember Bart Stupek of Michigan.
When these things happen, we are not well equipped to deal with them.
So when these things happen, these worst-case scenarios, we can't handle them, correct?
We are not well equipped to handle them. There will be impacts, as we are seeing, and we've never represented anything different than that.
And you've all said that.
And that's why the emphasis is always on preventing these things from occurring, because when they happen, we're not very well equipped to deal with them.
We'll have more on the oil spill after headlines. In Israel and the occupied territories, the Israeli cabinet's expected to approve a proposal today to alter the blockade of the Gaza Strip. More goods would be allowed to enter Gaza, but Israel would still decide what could be barred and would also maintain its naval blockade. The United Nations, meanwhile, has agreed to distribute the aid seized in the Israeli assault on the Gaza-bound Freedom Flotilla last month. The United Nations Special Coordinator for the Middle East Peace Process, Robert Seri, announced the deal in Geneva.
The United Nations has obtained the consent of the cargo owners of the 3 Turkish registered vessels to take possession of and responsibility for the entire cargo and ensure its timely distribution in Gaza for humanitarian purposes, as determined by the United Nations. The government of Israel has agreed to release the entire cargo to the United Nations in Gaza, again on the understanding that it is for the United Nations to determine its appropriate humanitarian use in Gaza.
The Israeli government panel investigating the Flotilla assault, meanwhile, is holding its first meeting today. At the United Nations, the Human Rights Council Special Rapporteur for the occupied Palestinian territories, Richard Falk, criticized Israel for rejecting an international probe.
I'm rather skeptical, and that skepticism, I think, is reinforced by the investigation that was carried out of the Operation Cast Lead, in which the most serious infraction that was found in the report was a allegation that an Israeli soldier had stolen a credit card. None of the serious allegations involving tactics and weapons and the attack itself were subjected to any sort of objective analysis.
In Kyrgyzstan, the death toll from several days of fighting between Kyrgyz and Uzbeks could be far higher than previously thought. The interim Kyrgyz government says the toll could be several times higher than the official toll of nearly 180 people. The International Committee of the Red Cross says at least several hundred people have died. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees says 200,000 people have been internally displaced, while 75,000 have fled to neighboring Uzbekistan. UNHCR spokesperson Rupert Colville says the ethnic violence has targeted children.
Indiscriminate killings, including of children, and rapes appear to have been taking place on the basis of ethnicity. We believe this is an extremely dangerous situation given the ethnic patchwork in this part of Kyrgyzstan. It's a highly complex ethnic mix there with some 80 different groups just in the Osh region. It's been known for many years that this region is a potential tinderbox, and for that reason it's essential that the authorities act firmly to halt the fighting.
The interim government has accused the former president, Kurmanbek Bakiev, of provoking the violence in order to destabilize the country ahead of a planned constitutional referendum later this month. Bakiev was a U.S. ally until his removal in an uprising last April. Egypt is facing growing calls for an independent probe into the police killing of a young man who was reportedly preparing to expose police corruption. According to family members, the alleged victim, 28-year-old Khalid Mohammed Saeed, was about to release a video showing officers dividing up narcotics and cash seized in a drug bust. The Egyptian police claim Saeed died after choking on a marijuana cigarette he'd swallowed when police officers tried to arrest him. But eyewitnesses say he was dragged into the street and beaten to death. The graphic pictures have also emerged of Saeed's shattered face, sparking a national uproar. On Sunday, Egyptian security forces beat and arrested dozens of protesters in downtown Cairo at a rally calling for justice in Saeed's case and the resignation of Egypt's interior minister, who controls the police force. On Tuesday, Egyptian prosecutors said they've ordered a second autopsy to determine the cause of Saeed's death. A U.S. citizen has been arrested in Pakistan while apparently on a solo mission to attempt to hunt down Osama bin Laden. Gary Brooks Faulkner of Colorado reportedly told Pakistani authorities he was seeking revenge for the 9/11 attacks. Pakistan says Faulkner was arrested near the Afghanistan border carrying a pistol, sword, night vision goggles, a map, and Christian literature. The Pentagon's upheld its ban on 4 journalists from covering military commissions at Guantanamo for reporting the name of a military interrogator involved in the case of Canadian prisoner Omar Khadr. The ban was imposed despite the fact the interrogator's name had already been widely published in previous news reports. In reaffirming the ban, the Pentagon said it would consider lifting it on a case-by-case basis should the 4 reporters choose to appeal independently. You can go to our interview with Michelle Shepard on our website at democracynow.org, one of those 4 reporters. The Nation magazine's reporting Blackwater owner Eric Prince could be planning a move to the United Arab Emirates. According to independent journalist Jeremy Scahill, 3 sources close to Blackwater and Prince say Prince is planning a move to the UAE amidst growing legal troubles for his private military firm. 5 of Prince's deputies were indicted on weapons charges in April, and just last week, Prince announced he's putting Blackwater up for sale.